As Raiders training camp is nearing an end, how is head coach Pete Carroll feeling about certain players and position groups? Plus, who's going to be that big impact player on defense across from Maxx Crosby? That plus more on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for August 21st, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line 707-654-4693. As you can imagine, a lot of great feedback, calls, texts, all from you, Raider Nation. We'll get as much in as possible as we close out the show coming up in segment number 3. Segment number 2, want to focus in on the Raiders defense, and we know what Maxx Crosby brings to the table, right? When healthy, we know who he is. First time in his career he ever missed some games was last year due to injury, so that's not something that we could say, well, if Maxx is healthy. We know Maxx is going to be healthy. We know what he brings to the table. But who's going to be the other guy, right? Who's going to be that other big, impactful player on the Raiders defense? We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and a lot of it has to do with hearing from head coach Pete Carroll as he met with us at the Intermountain Health Performance Center after practice on Wednesday. We'll jump right into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. Football season, it's right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Before we get into anything, head coach Pete Carroll, I did want to celebrate this show. I wanted to celebrate Raider Nation, and the Locked On Podcast Network actually celebrated me on Wednesday, and I saw this by way of Twitter. Didn't really realize. I knew that the date was coming up pretty soon. I knew that it was the anniversary of, the time that I've been doing this show. Didn't realize how long it was because, well, time just happens to fly when you're having fun. And trust and believe, we have a lot of fun here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. But they tweeted out on Wednesday morning, congratulations to Locked On Raiders host, your boy Q, who just hit 7 years with Locked On. So pretty incredible, 7 years. And anyone who's been in this kind of field or, first of all, been listening to me for that long of a time, definitely appreciate you. But, radio, podcast, any kind of field like this of entertainment, 7 years is like a lifetime, right? So to know that this show has gone 7 years long, 7 years strong is fantastic. Got a couple of tweets, and I got a ton of great tweets. Matter of fact, over 60 comments, over 500 likes, right? I just quote tweeted it and said, man, 7 years, great team, great teammate. It's been a lot of fun. But my guy, Tom Kennedy, he was actually my number 1 caller, the very first caller I ever had for segment number 3, the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. Tom, so he tweeted, he said, it's caller number 1. I've enjoyed every episode and look forward to 7 more years, though I think bigger and better things are in store for Q in the future. Congrats. And then Vader Raider in the 303, he's been rocking with me since day 1 and said, congratulations, Q. So proud to say that I've been along for this ride like many others. You've taken us along on your journey. Thanks a lot, Vader Raider. Again, over 60 great comments, over 500 likes. Really do appreciate the love. And again, the support of this show. The only reason I've been around 7 years is because you've been around 7 years and you've been promoting for 7 years and you've been supporting me for 7 years. That's the only reason this show has gone this long. Because trust and believe, in this field, in this business, you could be here today, boom, gone tomorrow. With that being said, this show is actually going to get a bigger and better platform moving forward. It's something that's in the works. It's here locally in Las Vegas, has to do with the Silver Sports Network as well, which is part of Fox 5. Once I get all the details, I'll let you know what it is, but sounds like this show is going to get a little bit more exposure, which is pretty stinking cool. So like I said, as I find out about it, I'll let you know more at that time. But I do want to get into some Coach Pete Carroll sound. I don't want to go too long here in segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Just got a couple sound bites from what he had to say following practice on Wednesday. The first one was about Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell was visibly frustrated at practice on Wednesday. He's usually a guy that's very even keel. He's usually a guy that's very, encouraging. He's just there for his teammates. But you could see him visibly frustrated on Wednesday. So here's Pete Carroll responding to the question about, what caused Aiden O'Connell to show those emotions.
Well, what we did today is we turned the clock down on him. We started the clock a lot shorter, And so it just made it really hard on him. And we're just trying to make it as difficult as possible, turn the noise up and all of that. So he got a little frustrated by it. I told him we'll slow the clock down because it was kind of unrealistic. We gave him an 18-second clock, so it made a difference. But yeah, he's really feisty, and he cares a whole lot that he's serving everybody properly, and everybody's relying on him to make the call and get us going and all that. And so the fact that he takes pride in that and it pisses him off sometimes, ain't nothing wrong with that.
So it's funny because we spend a lot of time here on the show talking about Aiden O'Connell. That's why I wanted to bring that soundbite to the show today. And on Sunday, Pete Carroll was saying that the offense goes slower when Aiden O'Connell's in there, and they got to find a way to speed it up. Well, they did. They literally sped it up on Wednesday in practice. They sped him up by giving him less time to get the play in, get everyone set, and get ready to go. And there was times when Aiden O'Connell struggled, and he showed those emotions. And, Pete Carroll's not against guys showing their emotions, but it just shows that they're trying to make sure Aiden O'Connell speeds things up. So they obviously see some of the concerns that we've talked about quite a bit here on the show, but that doesn't mean that Aiden O'Connell's going anywhere. Doesn't mean that he needs to be replaced. Doesn't mean Cam Miller is going to take his job, but they are definitely trying to speed up the process when it comes to Aiden O'Connell. He was not the only guy whose emotions were on display on Wednesday. Matter of fact, Dylan Parham, the left guard, he's in the last year of his deal. He actually got pretty emotional as well. Here's Coach Carroll talking about that.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring him up. He was pissed today. He got mad at the defense getting after the running backs real late in the plays and all that. And if you notice, I was in the huddle with him. I just let him keep going, keep barking, because he was just showing who he is and how he cares and all that. He's tough. He's physical. He moves well. We don't mind putting him on the edge on some situations when we can. He's doing a good job.
Pretty funny when I saw Dylan Parham got pretty fired up. And look, I think everyone's pretty emotional right now. It's the end of training camp. Nobody wants to go up against these guys anymore. Everyone wants to go up against a real opponent, right? So you're seeing Maxx Crosby getting into it with the guys. You're seeing Dylan Parham. You're seeing Aiden O'Connell get frustrated. But Dylan was upset because, as you heard Coach Carroll saying, like, hey, man, these guys are going after the running backs when the play is over. So he's out there, and he's being the best version of himself, and he's being the protector along that offensive line and saying, hey, man, not my running back. You ain't going to go after Genty. You're not going to go after Zamir. You're not going to go after Sincere. Whatever the case may be, he was out there doing that job. And so I'm not mad at that at all. And again, Coach Carroll, hey, man, I let him keep barking. I was in the huddle, keep barking, keep barking. He likes that, showing that emotion, showing who you are, showing that fight. And that's what really all these players need to do is show that fight, saying it's a 90-man roster right now that by Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, it's got to get cut down to 53. One guy who's been stepping up and really showing out as far as I'm concerned, matter of fact, you'll hear from him coming up in segment number 2, and we'll actually talk about him in segment number 2, is Tyree Wilson. Vinny Bonsignore asked the question to Coach Pete Carroll after practice about the development and how far he's seen him evolve as a player now that he's in year 3.
Steady progress. The whole camp he's been doing a solid job. We've called on him in a number of ways to keep going and keep pushing. We're really trying to make sure that we put him in the right spots that takes advantage of his skills and his comfort and so that he can play at his best. So we have moved him around quite a bit. And so that continues. He's a really talented kid, and we just got to get him out there where he can do some good stuff.
So Coach Carroll wasn't just ready to announce that Tyree Wilson has arrived, but he's shown that he is definitely getting better. And that's something that, as a guy who's at practice every day, I can tell you Tyree is doing a lot better than he has. Tyree looks and sounds very confident. I actually got to catch up with him one-on-one last week before the Raiders and 49ers preseason game. So if we have time in segment number 2, I'll actually let you hear that conversation. It was about 3 minutes, and 3 minutes with Tyree Wilson is a long time, right? When he stepped to the podium on Wednesday in the indoor facility, he didn't have a shirt on. He had a little bit extra swagger, felt very confident. Like, this dude is a different guy. He's like coming out of that shell that he's had since he was a rookie in the National Football League when he arrived a couple seasons ago. He really seems like he's starting to evolve. Maybe a little bit of Maxx Crosby is starting to wear off on him, and he's starting to, like I said, come out of his shell, understand how big a season this is for him, and knowing that they have him playing outside and inside, and he looks like he's really comfortable in that role. The final soundbite that I want you to hear from Coach Pete Carroll is the question that I asked based off what he said to us on Sunday when we met with him by way of Zoom, and said that the communication that's been going wrong with the Raiders has really been between the safeties and the linebackers, but it's all has to do with the defense getting lined up, understanding their assignments, not blowing any of their communication. So I asked him about the communication and how he feels like it's been.
It's a really big deal. We've not had we've had some stumbles along the way, but it hasn't been something that's consistently showing up. We missed a call here. We blew a look one time or another here. The big touchdown play against Seattle we totally screwed that up in the huddle and at the line of scrimmage. We just gave him a touchdown, and so. But it is not pervasive. It's not. We don't have any problems with it. We just need to keep doing it. And the conversation that they have back there gives the guy next to them confidence that he's right, and he doesn't have to be second thinking. Am I right? Am I doing the right thing? What am I supposed to be doing here? That's what the communication allows us to get to that confidence level so we can execute really well.
Pretty detailed answer right there from Coach Carroll just about the communications, and you hear him even going back to preseason game number 1 where they just absolutely blew it at the line of scrimmage against Seattle. He feels like it's getting better, but that's definitely a work in progress, and it's something that I've been paying attention to. The linebackers are all veterans. The secondary is pretty young, right? There's got to be communication. The safeties are going to be in charge of really setting up this, this Raiders defense to where they need to be. Obviously, that communication is going to happen with the safeties and the Landon Roberts, who's wearing the green dot for the linebackers as well. And even though they're all veterans, they're all starting to learn to play with each other. So that's something to monitor. You're not going to be able to see a lot from it on Saturday because I don't expect to see the starters at all on Saturday. We'll see who's there. Coach Carroll said that everyone's live again, but I'm sure that everyone's not going to be live. Matter of fact, I'd be surprised if everyone even makes a trip to Arizona. Finally, I did want to let you know about today's practice, 10:30 a.m. to 11:45. It's going to be, I believe, indoors. And then 11:45 to 12:15, we're actually going to have an opportunity to catch up with some assistant coaches. This is a part of the practice that I really look forward to. At 11:45, Chris Beatty, Brendan Carroll, Dylan McCullough, Greg Olson, and Luke Steckel are all going to meet with us. So offensive coaches. Then at 12 o'clock, John Glenn, Robbie Leonard, Marcus Robertson, and Joe Woods are all going to meet with us. So that I really look forward to. They always set them up in the media, kind of room, the press conference room, and we just get to cherry pick who we want to go talk to. And last time they made these guys all available, didn't get a chance to catch up with Robbie Leonard. Really going to make a focus to catch up with him today for sure. But it's great when you have all those different coaches that you have an opportunity to talk to. So we'll do that coming up this afternoon there at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. But speaking of defensive guys who can stand out across from Maxx Crosby. Who's going to be that big impact player? We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, let me tell you about the title sponsor of this show, and that's FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. It's a brand new holiday for football fans who live and love bold predictions and preseason hunches. So for 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions, whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off. This is your moment. So for all you that call into the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail lines like, man, this is the year the Raiders are going to win the division. They're going to knock Kansas City off that pedestal. This could be for you. You want to call Ashton Jeanty the Offensive Rookie of the Year? This could be for you. Geno Smith? Boom. Maybe he's the MVP if they do knock Kansas City off their pedestal. There you go. There's plenty of different ways to play, plenty of different ways to win when it comes to FanDuel. Right now, visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your futures bets now because Futures Day is only one day, just one day, 24 hours. FanDuel, play your game. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to jump into the defensive side of things. I think we talked quite a bit about the offense and how exciting it could be. And I do think that this Raiders offense is going to be a lot of fun, led by Chip Kelly, Geno Smith, Ashton Jeanty, Brock Bowers. The list goes on and on. I think we're going to see a lot of fun, entertaining football from the offensive side of things. But what about the defense? We talked a lot about the secondary. If there's going to be questions in the secondary, who's going to be able to step up? Are the corners going to be, experienced enough to hold it down? What's going to be, the case when it comes to the defense? Are they going to do their job? We know what Maxx Crosby brings to the table, right? He's still out there at training camp and practice every day, wrecking practice to the point where sometimes he has to go out and let other guys get some burn so, they can actually get some other work done because, Maxx Crosby is Maxx Crosby. The question is, and this has been a question for a while, who's going to be the other guy that steps up? Who's going to be that other big impact player on the defensive side of things? And it's funny, Raider X actually called into my radio show a couple days ago and threw this at me. And I thought about it. I thought, that's a really good question. Thought about it overnight, talked about it on the radio the next day, and thought I'd bring it to the table here. It was because he kept saying that, look, we have Maxx, but what else do we have, or who else do we have? Who's going to be that one to make that big impact? And literally, I went to bed thinking about it. I woke up thinking about it and realized if I'm still thinking about it, it must be a really good question. So then I started thinking and started jotting some names down and said, okay, can they be that big impact player? Adam Butler obviously got paid to be that guy. And now we know that Christian Wilkins isn't coming back. So, and that's who they paid originally to be that guy, was Christian Wilkins, right? He was going to make everyone better, including Maxx Crosby, along that defensive line. He's not there, so he's not part of the equation. But Adam Butler, he filled in very well for Christian Wilkins last year. They paid him, gave him a contract extension this offseason for not what he's done, but what he's going to do. So obviously there's going to be a lot on Adam Butler's shoulders to be that guy. Right now, how big of an impact can he make? He's not going to be a guy that other teams and their offensive coordinators' game plans like, hey, man, don't let Adam Butler wreck the game. That's what they'll do for Maxx Crosby. So that's really what I'm looking for. Who's that game wrecker? Who's that guy that can make a play and change the trajectory of a game just like that? Like I said, that's Maxx Crosby for sure. So then I'm going through a few names. Malcolm Kuntz, right? He's on a one-year deal. He tore his ACL back in 2024, didn't play at all. That was unfortunate because we all felt like he was in line for a really big year. He's a guy that we haven't talked about a lot since training camp opened up. As a matter of fact, Pete Carroll talked about him on Wednesday after practice, saying that he's a guy that's just got to trust that he's healthy. And it's funny because I've torn an ACL in both of my knees, and I understand what Pete Carroll means by that, right? You're healthy, you're back after year one. They tell you that. But it's really year two, from my experience, that you really have your confidence all the way back. So when Pete Carroll says he has to trust that he's healthy and he's back, that lets me know why we haven't really talked a lot about Malcolm Kuntz. Watching him in particular at practice, he just doesn't seem like he's as confident that he's all the way back. And look, I played basketball. That was scary enough when I came back from a torn ACL playing basketball. I didn't have guys diving at my knees. I didn't have guys trying to take me out, have double team blocks. I didn't have all that. So I understand in football why it would be even more strenuous and it would, wear on you a little bit more. So I'm not blaming him. I understand completely. But again, you're looking to try to have this guy be the Robin to Maxx Crosby's Batman, and I just don't know how long it's going to take for him to feel fully confident. It doesn't look like he's there yet. Now, it might only take a handful of games, maybe a couple real games, and then, okay, cool, I'm good to go. But he's not there yet, you could tell. Jamal Adams is a guy that I look at and think, man, he could be that guy. I'm just not 100% sure how many packages or how many snaps, how many reps Jamal Adams is going to get, on the usual per game. Right? I mean, he's, again, playing a linebacker role, which is technically something new for him, but it's not really new. He's the guy that plays around the line of scrimmage all the time. When he's at his best, that's where he's playing in the box, right? I mean, in 2020, when he was in Seattle the first year, he had 9.5 sacks. So you know what he can bring to the table. He's going to get downhill. He's going to attack the ball carrier. He's going to attack the quarterback. He's a sure tackler. He's an alpha dog. He's physical. I mean, he checks all the boxes. I just don't know how much he's going to play. That's the big thing. So I don't know. I can't really put him in the category of he's going to be that big impact player until I have a better understanding of, how they plan on using him, what kind of packages they have for him, what kind of reps he's going to get in regular season action. What I've seen from Jamal Adams right now, he looks great. And if he could be anything close to what he was in 2020, where he's around the line of scrimmage early and often, then, then he could be that guy. We can revisit this conversation 4 or 5 weeks into the regular season and say, yep, he's him. Right? He's a guy that I could definitely see being him, but I'm not 100% sure how they plan on using him. With that being said, Jeremy Chin is a guy I look at and think, you know what? He could be that big impact player. He's a chess piece as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, he could play the traditional safety role. He comes up and plays the big nickel. He's a guy that if he has to go outside and play the cornerback role, he can. He's taking reps at the linebacker spot. Like, he's got so many reps, and he's so versatile going back to college. Right? I mean, that's how he really made his way into the National Football League, getting drafted in the second round by the Carolina Panthers, is because he had that versatility. And he's always hung his hat on that and had a really good season last year in Washington with Dan Quinn. Obviously, Dan Quinn comes from the Pete Carroll tree. So I could see them using him in very, many different ways, like Washington was able to use him and getting the most out of him. So he could be an impact player. Obviously had an interception against the 49ers. Isaiah Palomar had an interception against the Seattle Seahawks in preseason game number 1. I do believe that this defense is going to be looking for the ball, hunting the ball early and often. Jeremy Chin definitely could be that guy. With that being said, all roads lead back to the former first-round pick, Tyree Wilson. right? The guy that you heard Pete Carroll, what he had to say in segment number 1. I had a chance to catch up with him after practice, after that joint practice against the 49ers last Thursday ahead of preseason game number 2. I'll actually let you hear that in a quick minute, but Tyree Wilson could end up being that guy. I've said it before. I don't know if he's going to end up being, and justifying being selected number 7 overall, and none of that matters in year 3, not to mention 2 staffs later, right? I mean, look, he didn't get drafted by John Spite. He didn't get drafted by Tom Telesco. He got drafted by Dave Ziegler. So that's 2 GMs ago. None of that matters. Where you got drafted doesn't matter. The fact is that he's there. And again, just like I said in segment number 1, he sounds a lot more confident. He's playing well. He was coming on strong, I felt, at the end of 2024. Now he's got to keep on building on that, and he knows how big this year is. This is year number 3. Pretty soon the Raiders are going to have to make a decision. Are they going to pick up his 5th-year option or not? He knows what's on the line. And it's in a position of need. They need to have someone that could really step up along that defensive line, especially in the defensive tackle room, right? They've got a lot of dudes, but we don't know who's going to be the dude, right? Like Adam Butler, I mentioned him. Thomas Booker IV, I think he's going to compete for a starting job. I really do. They got Jonah Laulu. I like him a lot, right? They've got, Tyree. He's a guy that's going to play in there sometime that NASCAR package, right? He's going to do those type of roles, so he can play inside and out. There's guys that they have. J.J. Pegues, Tonka Hemingway, the rookies, right? They have those guys, but who's really going to step up and be that impact player? This really could end up being the year that we talk about Tyree and be like, man, that dude finally broke out. I'm telling you, walking around the facility, the way he does, the way that he plays, the way that he talks, he sounds like he's a lot more confident and sure of himself. He looks like he's a lot more confident and sure of himself. Now he's got to go out there and ball out. I thought he did a good job against the 49ers. But real quick, we'll close out segment number 2 from hearing from Tyree Wilson. I got to catch up with him right before the Raiders played the 49ers in the preseason game number 2 that Thursday after their joint practice. Here's that conversation. Here's the Raiders' Tyree Wilson following the joint practice. And Tyree, we just asked Coach Carroll if he got out of this practice what he wanted to see. What did you get out of this practice?
Man, we finally got to go against somebody else. The game, we played the game last week, but, we had a lot to learn from that game. So it was good to actually get to do a joint practice to, in a different atmosphere and actually, be able to compete and, show what we got and correct the mistakes from last week.
How do you feel like you guys have continued to evolve even from last week? It looks like your practices have been a little bit more detailed as well.
Man, once when you mess up on games, it's always come back to fundamentals. We got to be a fundamental team. You got to do the easy stuff longer than other people. So we came back to practice and work on the fundamentals and just kind of sharpen our tools and got back to work.
So you guys have been going through these practices. Again, you're going up against someone else. How have you felt personally when you're doing outside, you're going inside, you're playing multiple positions? Man,
it's become natural, man. You got a different repertoire. Going inside, outside. But, the inside helps you be able to work on the outside and vice versa. So, it's been great. I conquered the role and, I'm continue to grow and give the team what they need.
What is that camaraderie like on that defensive line and that defensive line room? You guys look like you're all a band of brothers.
Man, it's hard to explain, on the mic. You just got to see it, man. It's like high school kind of ball. Like when you grow up with boys, you so close, that's what it feels like. It's fun to go to work. It's fun to, do the meetings. We always together, hang out, go eat. It's just different. I feel like there's no other position room in the NFL like ours.
It's funny. It was only a couple years ago we were in Kansas City and I was interviewing you after you got drafted. Yeah. Can you imagine that you're in year 3 already? How fast has that gone by?
Man, to the guy back in, KC back in 2023, man, it's different. I've been around, started off slow, but hey, I come to work every day. I got great vets around me that keep pushing me, great coaches, and it's starting to come to light.
What do you feel like this opportunity means for you and with the coaches that are around you?
Man, I say everybody got an opportunity, but when it's your opportunity, you gotta grab a hold of it before it's gone. And I got a lot of dudes that's counting on me, a lot of coaches that's counting on me. So I gotta show up to get this team where we want to go.
What is it like going every day up against even Chip Kelly's offense, just even up against your own guys? I know you went against the 49ers today, but just going up against your own guys, how much does that sharpen you guys up?
Man, it sharpened us a lot. Just giving us different looks that nobody else gave us. So we're ready when we play other teams that we already seen that in practice, and we already know what to expect.
What does it feel like having your fans out here cheering you guys on, giving that energy?
Man, Raider fans always come 100 every time, no matter where we at, practice, games, preseason games, playoff games, it don't matter. I'm glad to have them around, gives us a little extra boost, with the energy they bring to the practice field.
I know you've been there, done that already, but Saturday you'll be at Allegiant Stadium again for another game. You excited for that opportunity?
Man, I'm excited to get in front of our fans again, play at home, protect our turf, and just ball with the brothers one more time.
Again, it could just be me. I remember being in Kansas City in 2023 when he was selected number 7 overall and getting to talk to him. He was very short, kind of very shy. Even though he's a big giant, he's a gentle giant, right? He just kind of was in a shell. Didn't sound like he's in a shell from what we just heard right there, the last 3.5 minutes, whatever the case was, and what we're seeing on the field doesn't look like he's shy. It looks like he's ready to go and understands his role. He's fully healthy, which is a big deal as well, and, ready to contribute with this Raiders team. If he could be that guy and Jamal Adams could all of a sudden, have a big impact as well, given whatever they decide, however they use him in this package as a linebacker, those could end up being two difference makers on the defensive side of things that go along with Maxx Crosby that we didn't even know that the Raiders had. We'll see sooner rather than later. Matter of fact, as we get to talk to some assistant coaches later today, we'll ask, especially Robbie Leonard, ask about the way that Tyree has continued to develop. But that's what I got for you for segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up in segment number 3, your calls, your texts, a lot of great feedback, 707-654-4693. We'll close out hearing from you. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor here on the show, and that is Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. Nobody wants to do that. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or even on your phone. Monarch's going to do the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts and minutes, see clear data visuals. You can get all the categorization of your spending and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. If you have subscriptions that you didn't know that you were paying for, Monarch Money will point them out. Rideshare, food, everything that you're spending money on that maybe you don't know how much it is, Monarch Money is going to help you do that as well. Get that under control. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Calls, texts, a lot of great feedback. We'll start off with a really personal one here from Gonzo Raider. It says, hey, Q, Gonzo Raider here from the 505. It's a bit of a different message. I'm hoping you can help me out. A friend of mine's dad passed away recently. He was a diehard Raider fan and proud member of the Raider Nation. Is there any way you can ask for the nation's thoughts and prayers for the family during this time? His name was Frank Maestas. Thank you and greatly appreciate it. That's Gonzo Raider. And no doubt about it. I try to set the tone here that this is a family. Raider Nation is one big family. That's what I tell everyone that has no idea what the Raiders stand for. And all the times when I was going to the Coliseum back in the day as a little Q, crossing that bridge, I knew as soon as I crossed that bridge coming from Bart, that all of a sudden I was going to walk into about 60,000 of my family members. So there's no doubt about it. That's how this podcast rolls. That's how this Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line works as well. So definitely thoughts and prayers out to the family. Sorry for the loss. And Raider Nation's definitely got the family's back. But Gonzo Raider, thanks so much for the text. Thanks, for passing along the information. Like I said, prayers and thoughts out to the Maestas family from Raider Nation. Up next, got a call from Darren in the 203. He's calling to talk about the benching of Anthony Richardson and the possibility of the Raiders making a move for him, something we talked about on Wednesday's show. Here's Darren in the 203.
Thank you. It's Darren from the 203. With the benching of Anthony Richardson, do you think that there is a world where the draft or the trade capital, the trade compensation would be cheap enough where we could see the Raiders do like a Aiden O'Connell plus a 4 or day 3 pick for Anthony Richardson? Obviously, I'm not expecting him to be a franchise player, but the potential, that athletic potential is still there. And if the Raiders are able to acquire him for a reasonable cost, it also adds a little bit of an extra element to the offense, an extra wrinkle to the offense, even if it's just using him like Taysom Hill, right, where you're going in there on the goal line and, you're just occasionally passing it. I think that could be something that is good, and Pete Carroll has a history of having these reclamation projects, right? So, why wouldn't this just be another one of those reclamation projects that he could go ahead and hang his hat on? So that is my point that I wanted to make, and I'll restate the other points that I made I think this team's going to be a lot like 2016, where it's going to be a lot of close games, and the defense is going to make its money on making impact plays as opposed to just being like super stout and low points given up. And then the other one is that I was looking at the Eagles in Chip Kelly's tenure, and especially in those first 2 years where it was much better, and I'm fact-checking myself this time, he had a receiver and a rusher go for at least 1,300 yards. In his first year, Shady went for 1,600 yards, and D-Jax went for 1,300, and in his second year, Shady went for 13, and Joey Macklin went for 1,300 as well. And then even in the third year where it was rough, and they didn't have a 1,000-yard rusher, they still produced 1,700 rushing yards on the ground. So just some excitement for Raider Nation in terms of, if you haven't looked back at just the stats, ignore all the extracurriculars that went on with his tenure as the head coach, we are going to see a very fun, very high-powered, very quick scoring and quick-paced offense, according to the statistics, in my opinion. Haven't looked much at his San Francisco stuff, so, maybe that contradicts me. But appreciate you, Q, appreciate you, Ari, appreciate the voicemail line, and appreciate you, Raider Nation. Let's try not to get too down in the dumps if the next preseason game doesn't look great. Especially if it's all backups. That's all for me. Peace, Q.
Big Darren, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, man, I don't see the trade. Maybe if it's really low draft capital, maybe they could pull it. I just don't think so, right? Availability is an issue. I talked about that on Wednesday. Him running the ball has been part of the struggles, right? I do think he wants to be a true franchise quarterback. I do think he's going to work really hard. I just don't know if he's that guy. And the reality of it is, no matter how many quarterbacks get drafted early, every one of them doesn't make it. So he might end up being the one that just didn't make it. Right, I didn't think that he should have came out of school as early as he did, but he had all that money on the line. They knew that they had a lot of momentum, for him getting drafted early. So I don't blame him for that. I just, it's one of those things. Like, quarterbacks come out, and a lot of times you say they should sit and learn, which is what he's going to be doing right now behind Daniel Jones. But what Anthony Richardson needed the most was actually playing, and he hasn't played that much since he's been in the league. He's going into year 3 already, and he's only played 15 total games. That's the problem, and his accuracy is not better, right? His understanding of just the NFL and playing the position is not that much better. I mean, you saw what happened in the preseason game where he got drilled. He never saw the blitzer coming, and he should have been able to see it. It's not like it hit him from his blind side. He just never looked. It's just, I mean, maybe sitting and learning is going to do him some good, and maybe he'll be very Geno Smith-like, and later on in his career, he'll be a lot better. I just don't think that the Raiders are going to, want to spend any draft capital to bring him in. And who knows if the Colts are ready to move on from him anyway. I feel like they are, but until we actually hear it or see it, we really don't know. I don't think that the Raiders are a team that's in position to take a flyer on a guy like that. I think they'd rather go and pick their own guy and then say, hey, we're going to develop him and we're going to sit him behind Geno or whoever's there, and we have our own plan for him. That's just my gut feeling with this staff. But, again, that's just my gut feeling. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Nick in Orange County. He says, hey, Q, I thought the second preseason game versus the Niners was much improved in offense. There's a lot of positives and also with the D-line. But as you've been saying, the linebackers and DBs are a concern. Just a quick question that I would love your insights on. I'm no expert, but during the past 10 to 12 years, the Raiders offense has been very predictable with the I-back formation. The game versus the Niners, every time I saw this formation, I cringed. Predictable and also high injury risk to our running backs, Genty. Then it happened. The hit that briefly took Genty out of the game. Do you think Chip Kelly and Pete are trying to sow simple formations for preseason so they won't give away their tactics or strategies for the regular season, or do they really believe in this weak, predictable formation? Could this lead to more injuries, or am I just a moron and don't know football? LOL. Thanks for the great and most trustable show, Q. Nick from Orange County. Nick, thanks for the compliments on the show. Thanks for the text as well. And no, you're not a moron, and they're just not showing anything in the preseason. They're going to be as vanilla as possible. And remember, the play that Genty got hurt on, he didn't get hurt because he was running the rock. He got hurt on a pass. He just tried to run over a defender, and he's got to realize that he's not going to be able to do that every single time. He's not in the Mountain West anymore. He's not in college anymore. He's going to understand that there's certain times to try to hit that truck stick, and there's other times to just get down and see another down. He'll realize that. He's going to be okay. But no, as far as the offense goes, they're not showing anything right now. They're trying to be as vanilla as possible. It's basically like, hey, roll the ball out, go play, and we'll go from there. So, yeah, they'll get creative. And trust me, what I've seen in camp and what I've seen in practice, and we're not allowed to report on it, like formations and trick plays and this, that, and the other, and how they're running the rock and who's getting the ball. And we're not allowed to talk on all that. But trust and believe, they're getting very creative. And I think that you're really going to like what you see from the offense once it's week 1 and they're in New England. Yeah, I think you're going to really enjoy what you see from this Chip Kelly-led offense. Thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Fred in Long Beach. He's calling to ask about a quarterback that he has some interest in and wants to know if the Raiders should as well. Here's Fred in Long Beach.
What up, Q? This is Fred from Long Beach. Hey, what you think about giving up Aiden O'Connell for Shedeur Sanders? Since they made Joe Flacco the starter and they like Kenny Pickett over there, why don't we just go get Shedeur and let him sit behind Geno and learn a year or two and develop? I know people was concerned about Deion. Deion's kind of on the back burner just chilling, not really making any noise. I say go get Shedeur. He's accurate. He's young. He can be, our next franchise quarterback. We already know we're getting with Aiden, which is not enough. Go get Shedeur for Aiden and call it a day. We actually may be able to get him for nothing. They like Kenny. They're not even got down depth chart at number 3 or something. So I say go get Shedeur, bro. Let me know what you think. Thanks.
Big Fred, Freaky Fred, thanks so much for the call. And, Shedeur for Aiden, I don't think it's going to happen, brother. Right? I mean, look, we all know that I was a Shedeur Sanders guy. I felt like that the Raiders had an opportunity to go get him. But the truth of the matter is, if they wanted him, they could have had him. They passed on him 7 times. Right? And I know right now you're thinking, no, but Shedeur was a 5th-round pick. Right. But the Raiders made 7 selections before Shedeur went number 144 to the Browns. Right? Their last pick before Shedeur was Tonka Hemingway at number 137. So they drafted 7 guys that were not named Shedeur Sanders. So if they wanted him, they could have had him. Honestly, I don't think that they want a guy that's very polarizing like Shedeur, and he is, whether you like him or not. So for one reason or the other, he's polarizing. I don't think that they want that sitting behind Geno. I don't think that they want that distraction, especially if Geno has a bad day. I mean, look how many jerseys he sold already, right? Look at the controversies that they're having in Cleveland right now. You got half the fan base angry because Flacco's starting. You got the other part of the fan base angry because, Shedeur is too low on the depth chart. And I don't think that the Raiders want all that kind of, that kind of noise. Let's put it like that in the most respectful way I can say it. I don't think they want that kind of noise around the organization. They're trying to build something right now. That's the last thing that they need is somebody saying, well, you need to have Shedeur in there. Shedeur should be in there. No, Geno's the guy. No, Shedeur. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that they want that at all. So then they don't need any kind of distractions. And speaking of distractions, for all those that thought Deion was going to be a distraction, you're right. He hasn't been any distraction at all, and now he's preparing for an upcoming college football season. So, yeah, as far as, them trading Aiden for Shedeur straight up, don't think that that's going to happen at all. And, everyone's going to have to wait and see if Shedeur gets onto the field or not, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. 5th-round pick, 4th quarterback on the depth chart. It's not going to be easy. But thank you for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Just got time for a couple more. This text comes from Todd in San Diego. It's a quick one. It says, I haven't heard anything about Kuntz from training camp. Good, bad, or indifferent. Last year was all about him blowing up. Are we solid on Kuntz or unknown how he's going to do this year? It's Todd in San Diego. Todd, thanks for the text. I appreciate you. And like I mentioned, when it comes to Malcolm Kuntz, and I talked about him in segment number 2, he just, to me, doesn't look like he's 100% confident yet. He looks healthy. He just doesn't look 100% confident. I think he'll get there. It's just going to take a little bit more time. He's just, again, like Pete Carroll mentioned at the press conference, he just needs to trust that he's healthy. And that's the biggest thing. Once he starts trusting that he's healthy, he'll be fine. He just isn't quite there just yet. And, that very easily could have been Malcolm Kuntz's first real injury that he's had in his NFL career or football career, I should say. It's his first in the NFL, but in his football career. And so that could be a little bit different of a, of a mindset for him as he tries to bounce back. But he's not quite there yet. He's physically he's there. Mentally, I don't think he's there just yet. But thanks for the text. Definitely appreciate you. We'll close out with a call from Army Raider. He's calling to talk about the quarterback position as it pertains to Aiden O'Connell. Here's Army Raider.
Hey, Q, it's your boy Army Raider. Yes, I just catching up for your first couple podcasts. Luke's been a little busy, so I didn't get to listen to much of anything. Anyways, going into your conversation on AOC, I'm not one of the people who says the rookie's gonna be that guy or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I actually think we probably need to address the position next year in the draft, regardless of how this year plays out, with Gino getting a little bit older and being on a short-term contract. I will say what I think it is with Aiden is that following Chip Kelly for quite a long time, as he was in college, and the one thing as a quarterback you need in his offense is a little bit of mobility. You also need a plus arm. Unfortunately, AOC doesn't really have either of those qualities, and it seems like that's being exacerbated because it is a need of the offense. And I think that what's happening is he sees that he doesn't necessarily have the tools for the offense, and he's overcompensating a bit for it. Anyways, I mean, he's using what we got as a backup this year, but I hope to see him get better. It's just it's not a good offense for his skill set. Anyways, that's my thoughts on it. Love to hear your take. Army Raider out.
Army Raider, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, man, I'm with you on him not being a great fit in Chip Kelly's offense. I think that's pretty obvious. Pete Carroll said on Sunday the offense goes slower with Aiden to the point where they sped him up. They actually sped him up on Wednesday, only giving him 18 seconds to get a play going, just to force him to go faster. I'm sure that they'll address that position at some point, right? I feel like the guys in the building, they really like Cam Miller. He's just really young right now, but there's definitely some momentum to people in the building liking Cam Miller. He's not ready to be the backup quarterback right now. I don't want to get that twisted and Q said Cam. No, Q didn't say that at all. Aiden O'Connell is the backup quarterback. Cam Miller very easily could be the backup quarterback next year, right? Maybe even later in the season. They look at him and say, yeah, okay, he's got enough experience now. He's good to go. I just don't see it. I think it'll be something that happens next year, and then they'll address the quarterback position. So that's where I kind of am. That's where I fall with the Aiden O'Connell backup quarterback conversation as it pertains to Cam Miller and the silver and black. So that's all I got time for on today's show. Got a text from 60s era Raider. Got Tuck Rule Fool in Colorado, Tadreese in New Jersey, E-Rich in Rockland, Cali. Got all that coming up. We'll do that on tomorrow's show. Of course, we'll let you hear from some of the assistant coaches that we get a chance to talk to this afternoon. I'm fired up and excited to talk about them. We also have the Raider Squad Show. Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself. We're back at 7:30 this morning. So based off whatever time you're listening to this show, it may already be over. 1 hour long, 1 hour strong live stream. It could be over, or it could be getting ready to get going. So we definitely appreciate everyone that tunes into that. Already has made that show number 2 in a very short amount of time. Now we're like Ludacris. We're going for that number 1 spot. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, until we close out the week really strong, we do appreciate you. As always, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.